So every single year, an older iPhone becomes a little bit older, and some iPhones actually end up getting, their support of iOS dropped. But as of right now, there is a very interesting, kind of perplexing thing going on with some of these older iPhones, because I will say for some of these older iPhones, they are actually getting significantly better, but some of these older ones like the iPhone 10s and older, they're kind of at a standstill, which is kind of sad. But I still think older iPhones are still worth buying. They're still completely competitive against the latest iPhones, and I still think a lot of people are probably better off buying something like somewhat of like a older version of like an iPhone 13, iPhone 12, iPhone 11 than even buying something like an iPhone 14. Not for everyone, but I do think there's a lot of people who are in that, specific, area. I think the very first thing that is the most important thing to keep in mind here is that if you're somebody who's planning on buying that next generation iPhone, it's always great to see what you're getting. If you compare an iPhone 14 against an iPhone 13, very similar things all across the board. There really wouldn't be that crazy big of a reason. There wouldn't be that big of a reason to go from an iPhone 13 to an iPhone 14. You were getting very similar types of devices from one to the other. I would even say from an iPhone 12 to an iPhone 14, same exact thing. In fact, whenever I look at something like an iPhone 11 Pro to an iPhone 14 Pro, there's massive differences, but I only start to see big, massive differences about 3 generations behind. So when you're going from an 11 Pro to a 14 Pro, so on and so forth, you're still getting very competitive phones, but clearly they're not as good. But I would say from my experience, the hardware, the exterior, the displays, everything across the board, older iPhones still hold up very, very well from that perspective. I will also say, with iOS 17, we are starting to see that Apple is going to start limiting a lot of iOS features here and there between one software version to the other. And that's another thing that's kind of going to be up in the air going forward. But I do think with something like the iPhones, like on iOS 18, 19, 20, I do feel like Apple's going to be still supporting a lot of these older iPhones. And because they're going to be so cheaper, you might as well just go ahead and buy an older iPhone. Maybe that's, still like an iPhone 11 or iPhone 12, or rather than buying something like an iPhone 14, because you are still going to be getting a very solid iPhone for that price tag, and it's still going to be supported with software. It's still going to have decent hardware. The performance is still going to be pretty good, and there's not really going to be a lot of things to complain about even with that type of device. So that's another thing that kind of stands out to me, in that specific situation as well. So I would say from a mixture of price tag, performance, everything across the board, you're probably going to be doing yourself a favor by getting somewhat of an older iPhone, because they still hold up very, very well, even against some of the latest generation iPhones as well. So just something to keep in mind. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.